are your agents. David Lloyd, Jay Harris here with you at the exact moment, right now, noon Eastern, that NFL teams are allowed to start talking with agents for prospective free agents. It's our favorite oxymoron, legal tampering, Jay.
Our guys, David, are all over it. Adam Schefter, Chris Mortensen working the phones, as you can see. Louis Riddick standing by, ready to offer insight and context on all moves. This Sports Center is a very fluid situation, so hold on and enjoy the ride. All right, we start with breaking news on this Sports Center. Moves already being made. The Eagles landing a new defensive tackle. According to our Josina Anderson, former Jaguar Malik Jackson expected to sign with Philly. Adam Schefter reporting the deal expected to be for 3 years, worth $30 million. And there is more. Malik may not be the only Jackson on the Eagles. Sources telling ESPN's Jenna Lane and Tim McManus, Bucs receiver Deshaun Jackson is on the trading block and would like to return to Philly. The Eagles are expected to have mutual interest in a reunion, sources say. In a busy market for receivers, the Lions announcing they have signed veteran Danny Amendola. ESPN Santa Racine reports it's a one-year deal worth up to $5.75 million. Amendola played last year in Miami after 5 years in New England. So which teams have money and what players are looking to get paid? The Colts and Jets lead the way with almost $100 million in cap space entering the 2019 league year. And who are the big names in the market? ESPN.com ranked the top free agents, and former Steeler Le'Veon Bell leads the way, followed by a couple of QBs and Nick Foles and Teddy Bridgewater. David?
All right, Jay, as we mentioned at the top, we have our full complement of insiders. Morton, Adam here with us. Let's start with Malik Jackson. Really good player, made the Pro Bowl in 2017, lost his starting job in November. So what kind of player are the Eagles getting here?
I think it's a guy that, again, helped the Denver Broncos once win a Super Bowl, who was inconsistent last year, lost his job at one point, but flashed at times to the point where there were enough teams out there interested in signing him right now. Philadelphia loves beefing up its defensive line. It does just that with Malik Jackson.
Yeah, and this is kind of an insurance for Tim Jernigan, who really battled some injuries and back problems last year. I think it's because maybe they said goodbye to Michael Bennett, but It does give him that depth. Remember, he's not part of this free agent class because he was already released by the Jaguars. They freed up cap space. Carlos Hyde, actually the Eagles wanted Carlos Hyde too before he settled for Kansas City, but they freed up that cap space, and one of the reasons why we believe is Nick Foles. Being able to go out and sign possibly Nick Foles, although we will wait and see whether that happens.
And just a point of clarification, because I think some fans are confused with the free agent negotiating period opening now, free agency opening 4 p.m. on Wednesday. Players that have been released from teams, Danny Amendola, Malik Jackson, Carlos Hyde, they are free to sign right away with a team. But players who are on expiring contracts who are not released have to wait to sign until 4 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. But teams are now officially negotiating with players, and they can enter into agreements.
Which means it's not tampering, David.
Right.
So you can't have legal tampering if it's not tampering. It's the open negotiation window. The tampering's actually already took place.
I love the term, legal tampering. All right, so let's get to that batch of guys you're talking about. The number one free agent on the board, everyone's talking about, Le'Veon Bell. He's already given up a year of salary. He's got to make some now. What are you hearing about him?
Listen, he's the number one free agent out there on the market. The issue is he plays a position that typically does not get paid overly well, and there doesn't seem to be a team out there with a screaming need. I know people have talked about the Jets being the favorites, but I don't think that the building is in universal agreement that they'd want him there at that price. Great player, yes.
What price are you talking?
Well, top running back price. Listen, he passed up $14+ million a year last year, so you know what he's looking for. He's looking for a payday, especially to make up for that. The question is, who's going to give it to him?
Well, you know, listen, the teams that I've seen affiliated with him from talking to people behind the scenes are teams like the Jets. Yes, we've heard their name connection. The 49ers. The Ravens are going to slow play this because if that market drops on Le'Veon Bell, they would like.
Wouldn't that be something? It goes from Pittsburgh to Baltimore.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's if the number drops down a bit. Remember, this is still, listen, he's got value, he's young, he's got skill, but his worst year was the last year he played, which wasn't last season, the year before that. And he's also a guy who's been suspended a couple times. So, and running backs can be found on the market. He is a unique back.
And Antonio Brown would like to see him in Oakland with Antonio Brown.
And I'll bet you $1 that won't happen.
I'm glad. Adam, thank you very much. Let's talk about Antonio Brown. That was the story of the weekend. The Steelers trading him to the Raiders for a third and a fifth. Brown now has a new 3-year deal. Yeah, $30 million of that. $50 million is guaranteed. He didn't have any guaranteed money left on his Steelers contract. what impact could that have on other wide receivers who
Well,
come up on
listen,
free
I
agency?
think it impacts all players, but you've got a receiver who had 3 years left on his deal, who's now getting the top wide receiver salary in the league, $30+ million guaranteed, added money, raise when he had time left, and frankly, there were a shortage of teams willing to pay Antonio Brown that were out there. So this is a major win for Antonio Brown, and I think it's going to influence the other wide receivers who want new deals this offseason, starting with Julio Jones, A.J. Green, Mike Tyreek Hill, Amari Cooper.
I don't think it starts a trend. T.O. did not start a trend.
Right.
T.O. kind of operated this way. This is still a guy who did AWOL in week 17.
Right.
But he did win in terms of the money he gets, and certainly to a team he desires, although he's not playing with Ben Roethlisberger anymore, which is kind of an interesting dynamic.
Right. Okay. Yeah. You have to have a certain mentality to follow the blueprint that Antonio Brown did with the scorched earth, basically calling his quarterback. You know, he had an owner's mentality and all of that. A lot of guys aren't going to go that route, but
a lot of teams didn't step up on this one.
Exactly. Some thought he might have hurt himself, but it didn't work out that way.
Okay.
These guys are here all hour, all day. We expect news to happen. Let's get it over to Jay and Lou Riddick.
All right, David Lloyd, our NFL front. What's your take on what Antonio Brown did as far as impacting other stars looking for new deals in the future?
Well, like, Mort just alluded to, I don't know if it's necessarily going to impact other players as far as them starting a trend. I will say this, for the upper echelon of players, for the top 2% of players, look, the one thing that you always have as a player is this. The leverage that you always have is the ability to withhold your services. If you're willing to go ahead and see it through and not blink, then, hey, more power to you. Go ahead and do it. Le'Veon Bell did it for an entire year. Antonio said he wouldn't play this year if someone didn't step up and play and pay him. Now, would Julio Jones do that kind of thing given what what the net result was for AB? I don't know. I don't know if these guys will start doing that. But that is the one thing that they can always use to their advantage is, look, we are superstar players. We're game-changing players. And we're going to – most guys and most teams – let's just put it this way. Most teams think – when the light shines the brightest and it's time to get paid, they're going to come in. They don't want to forfeit that money. Le'Veon Bell forfeited $14+ million.
Yes, he did.
Okay? Not many guys are willing to do that. I don't know if that's the kind of trend that players necessarily want to get behind.
Actually, it depends on what he gets back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But still, it's still 14 in the hole.
True. We just heard the guys talking about the market for Bell. What teams make sense to you?
Well, the obvious ones when you look at the depth charts really are, look, you look at the Bucs, you look at the Jets, you look at the Raiders, you look at the Colts. Those are the teams that make sense. But again, there's other factors that go into this kind of decision. It's not just about, from a fantasy football perspective, who's just going to give us the most bang for our buck. And with him, I would not be shocked to see the Raiders go ahead and make a run at this. Really? I wouldn't be shocked to see the Bucs. Well, if you're the Raiders, why not? You need juice on your football team on the field and with the people who are buying season tickets and the people who are paying to come see you play. If you have Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, that makes a lot of sense to me from a excitement-generating standpoint. It makes a lot of football sense for the Jets to go ahead and sign him. It makes a lot of football sense for the Bucs to sign him. He is a dynamic two-phase player in terms of running the football and catching the football out of the backfield. But there are other things that you have to keep in mind. He's a guy who hasn't made the best decisions off the field, so you don't know about his availability. And there's a guy who has had some lower leg injury history, so now there's questions about durability. And those are the kind of things that can suppress your value and suppress your market, and the market can get soft for you very quickly. But again, just like with AB, it takes one.
Yep.
And there's probably going to be one out there.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about it on here.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Louis Riddick, thank you.
Got it.
David?
Jay, Lou is not going anywhere. We want to talk defense. Who's going to step up for Earl Thomas? Who's going to step up for Trey Flowers? We'll talk to Lou about that. Plus, after the Warriors were eclipsed by the Suns, a former NBA coach weighs in. What's wrong with the Dubs? Much more SportsCenter coming up. Much more from Mort and Adam. They're not going anywhere as well. Legal tampering began just a few minutes